Welcome to the Literature Lounge, where writers and authors share their stories behind their stories.
There's no point shunning it and saying that I will not adopt technology because the fact is, audio is doing really well.
For all the aspiring writers and editors out there who feel like they're not doing enough, and I feel that very often, what would you say to them?
Take baby steps. Only you know what your life is like and what you're
Yeah.
going through. So, even if you think you're not doing that much, even if you've taken half a step or one step, that's still progress because finally it's a accumulation of all the steps you've taken.
Do you think that traditional publishers, what is it that they need to do to stay relevant?
There's no point, say, kind of shunning it and saying that I will not adopt technology because the fact is, audio is doing really well. Audiobooks are doing well, ebooks are doing there is a market, there is a space for it for sure.
Hi, in today's podcast, we have with us a writer, editor, podcaster, and currently the rights manager at Tuleka Publishers. She's one of the creative force behind the blog, The Moody Marshmallow. The podcast is the Closet Writer Chronicles.
Yes.
Yeah. And a contributing editor at Carve Magazine and Body Talk. So let's welcome Sangeetha Menon in today's episode. So to begin with, Sangeetha, let's just talk a little bit about your entry into writing as something that happened on a whim in 2017. I was just reading about it and I was thinking, oh my God, uncanny, because I began in 2018 and 2017 was what I was toying with the entire idea. So take us back to that moment. What was the first thing that you wrote? What made you think, wait, I may be a writer?
Yeah, oh my God, that's wow, what a coincidence that
It
even you
is.
were
I was
going through
just
that.
reading and I said, oh my God, I think I have a lot in common with her.
Oh my God, that's amazing. But I think in my case, the thing is, I always knew I enjoyed writing. Like I was that kid in school who loved English class, who loved writing the English exams. I used to
Yeah.
have a lot of fun with it, but it was just something that I kind of, okay, I enjoy doing this, but it's not something I'm going to pursue professionally because I think, like most Indian families, you don't ever think of pursuing a creative career usually. But I think what happened with me was, I think 2016, 17, I was in general going through a bit of a rough patch in my life and was having an existential crisis of, oh my God, where is my life going? What's happening with my career? All of that. And I remember just waking up really frustrated on a Tuesday morning. And I don't know what came over me. I just opened my laptop, opened a Word document, and just started typing. And I didn't even consciously think of what I was typing. I was just typing, and then about 30 to 40 minutes later I had my first poem in front of me. And again, completely just out of the blue, I said, okay, you know what, let me just put it up. So I started a WordPress blog, which is the Moody Marshmallow, and put it out and shared it, and it was received well. And I thought, oh, I guess this is something I could potentially start doing more, and we'll see where it goes. That's really how it started.
So, my blog was called Moody Mo.
Oh, wow. Okay. Wow. We really do have a lot in
We
common.
have a lot in common. So, for me, when I started, I had no clue because I was like really on the wrong side of my 40s where technology was like such a far-fetched dream for me. And people said, you can start a blog. And, I said, okay. They said, no, Mohua will not work because people have problems pronunciation, with the pronunciation of the word.
I can
And
empathize.
so they said, why don't you shorten it and call it Moody Mo? And I'm not moody as a person at all. But then, well, I listened to what the youngsters said and I started the Moody Mo blog. And that's
Oh,
when,
wow.
for me, blogging began actually on arts and crafts and gender. So let's talk a little bit about your blog, The Moody Marshmallow. About this absolutely wonderful, introspective and eclectic tone that you use. Did you always intend it to be a space for poetry and reflection, or did that really evolve over time, or was it like really a thought out thing?
No, I just wanted a space where I could put out my writing as and when I wanted. I never thought it was ever going to become something that I think garnered, a following as it did. So I think it was again during the pandemic where I got serious again and I started posting things because I was very sporadic with it. And even right now it's on a bit of a hiatus and I'm thinking, okay, now should I revive it? If I do, how do I want to do it? But it was really a space for me to just put out things that I felt like, writing and just exploring. And because a lot of things I've written which I've not put out on the blog as well. So it's really just whatever I'm comfortable sharing. And, touch wood, it's got a readership and people have received it well. So I'm very fortunate about that. But there was no thought out strategy of, oh, I'll only put poetry, I'll only, put reflections. It just turned out that way.
Congratulations, Sangeeta. So
Thank
let's
you.
talk a little bit about your journey with Napo.
Yes.
Clearly, it's had a very big impact, on your creative flow. So, what does writing a poem a day for a month do to a writer's brain? I would love for you to answer that because I write every day too.
Oh, wow. Okay, yeah. So, NaPoWriMo, or National Poetry Writing Month, which happens in April every year, so it's happening right now as we speak,
Yes.
is this movement where, writers are encouraged to write a poem a day. And it's really just to celebrate this whole idea of poetry and I think being a poet and all of that. And there's some wonderful writers and resources who put out prompts for the entire month, which you can refer and pick up. And I think for me, again, I started during the pandemic because I had a lot of time on my hands, like a lot of people. I was unemployed at the time. So I was like, okay, let me just focus on writing a little more. And I said, okay, let me take up NaPoWriMo, for fun. And what I realized is it was like a month of self-study for me, really, because I think I really got to explore different facets of poetry, which I didn't even realize existed. Like, okay, I know what a haiku is, but oh, I can do a variation with a haiku. I can write a sonnet, but I can do it this way. So it was so interesting and it really challenged me to think outside the box. It really pushed me creatively. And I think by the end of it, what that really did for me is even today when I write, something I do is I like to take a poetry prompt and that helps my creative juices flowing because it really gets you to think, to really, push outside whatever boundaries you might have. I think that's one of the major benefits of doing something like NaPoWriMo for sure.
Fantastic. You've worn multiple hats, at Tulika Publishers, and now you're their rights manager. So, what does a rights manager really do? I think for all our listeners, I would really like to know what does it mean? It means finding new avenues for stories to travel. What is it? Tell me.
So yeah, I started out as a publishing assistant at Tulika. I was kind of poised to to go into the rights department because my predecessor at the time was moving out shortly. So they had always kind of positioned me in that sense. But yes, of course, I do pitch in with marketing. I do some of the interviews on the Tulika Instagram channel and social media. I also work closely with the finance team and edit with the editors as well on a few things. So yeah, it's an interesting space, but what a rights manager does, and I get this question a lot because every time I say I work in a publishing house, everyone just assumes I'm an editor. But no, but a rights manager essentially handles the subsidiary rights. What that means is, so say we have a book that's out, right? So my job is to essentially see what other formats and languages the book can be adapted into for different territories. So, oh, maybe this book would work really well in Spanish. Can we pitch it to, a Spanish speaking country, somewhere in Europe, perhaps, maybe North America? What's the market like? Is there space for a book like this? Will it work well in print? Will it work well in audio, for screen, maybe? Or even within India, right? Language rights domestically,
Oh, yeah,
maybe
yeah,
the
yeah.
audience in, say, Marathi or Kannada or Malayalam. So really kind of, looking at those aspects. And another part of it is, of course, licensing and permission. Say if someone wants to maybe use one of our stories for, say, adapt it for stage or again for screen, or even just use an excerpt in, say, a textbook or something, I kind of help with that process as well. So that's pretty much what I do if I've managed to explain that well enough.
That's a lot. That's a lot. Many, many hats that you wear. Oh my God. A poet also wearing the finance hat is like, that's quite an anomaly, but hats off. So, in the world of publishing, what's more challenging, editing a book, acquiring rights, or selling rights internationally? I would love to know a little bit about the rights internationally.
Mm, yeah, I think, this is going to sound so diplomatic, but I feel like each of those things is challenging in its own way. But I think personally, editing is probably the most challenging because I think that's where you're really creating as much as I detest using this word, the product that you have to pitch for sales, right? It is a story. It's the story you're working on, what your sales team and rights and marketing, all of them are going to be working with. So I think editing is really where
It's
you make, yeah. it's your foundation.
Yes,
So
it
I
is.
feel,
Yeah.
yeah. So I really think that's the base. But yeah, I think after that, selling rights would definitely, I would say, is challenging. But I think it's also about being intentional about it. I mean, one thing I know some people do is they'll just pitch it everywhere and kind of hope what works. I mean, that's one way to do it because sure, you never know. You send out 100 cold emails, maybe, or make cold calls and see what works where. The other is being, very intentional that, okay, say this is a book on green literature, on, conservation, environmental conservation. It's for kids. Okay, what are the territories that potentially have interest? Okay, maybe let's look at, say, something like Brazil. Okay, I want to pitch to Brazil. Who are the publishers there who are doing books like this? Oh, there's also a provision for government grants there. So there is an interest for maybe schools to do this. Okay, maybe we can talk to an agent, approach the publisher directly. And that's how you kind of intend and pitch and say, hey, I have this, going by your recent catalog. I think this would be a great fit. What do you think? And you accordingly make that connect. It's also about providing value to the person you're selling to by the end of
Yeah,
the
yeah,
day.
yeah, yeah, yeah.
So it's really, it's that, yeah.
So the publishing world, it's like rapidly changing, right? With audiobooks, AI, and self-publishing is on the rise, and why not? Because everybody love authors really love to write, and then they don't know how to go about, pitching their stories to traditional publishers. So do you think that traditional publishers, what is it that they need to do to stay relevant?
Hmm. I think so. I think we're in a very interesting
Yeah,
time and space right now with this whole
true.
AI conversation for sure. Um, but I think, honestly, I think we're in a space where we need to learn to coexist. And there's no point, say, kind of shunning it and saying that I will not adopt technology. Because the fact is, I mean, audio is doing really well. Audiobooks are doing well. Ebooks are doing, like, there is a market, there is a space for it for sure. I mean, it's still, I would say, fairly nascent in India, or maybe not as developed as it is in, say, North America, and the UK perhaps. But it is, kind of building. It's still a slow growth. I think there are a lot of startups and companies here who are in this space who are also kind of, finding their footing. So, I mean, I think the best way is to learn to coexist. I mean, I think my main concern is really, I think, the licensing and sort of this legislation around AI and copyrighted material. I don't know if you want to get into that, but yeah, I think that's probably my concern with the whole thing.
So, what are the most exciting trends you've currently seen, in children's publishing? Are there anything that makes you, skeptical, uneasy? Do share that with us.
Yeah, I mean, I think with children's books, again, very exciting time. I think in the past few years also we've seen, publishers come out with very exciting themes and subjects. I mean, green literature has been a one for sure. Then of course you
Yeah.
have books covering gender, mental health. That's another big one. But I think what's interesting is this sort of, I think graphic novels are having a moment for
Yes.
sure. Like, I think that's really for the past few years, definitely. And I think it's going to continue for a while. And in that space, I mean, creative nonfiction and nonfiction in the graphic space, I think is definitely going to see some growth. We're already seeing that. I think that's just going to increase for sure. So that's something to look forward to. Like if I talk about Tulika, for example, we have a book by P. Sainath called Unknown Heroes, which was adapted from his book The Last Heroes, and been seeing that book doing really well because it really cuts across, I think, age groups as well. So I think that's definitely something I see growing, and audio as well for kids. I
Yeah,
see
yeah,
it
yeah.
growing in the next few years.
Hmm. Do you feel sad about it that audiobooks are growing instead of books that need to be read?
No, not at all. I think, see, both kind of coexist. I mean, at least if I talk about children's books, I don't see print books running out or, dying down, as they say, so easily. Because I think reading a physical book has also like cognitive benefits for a child, right? There is that sensory, tactile, it's got its own pros. And I think with parents also trying to control screen time as well, that's a concern. So audio becomes a great alternative. And I think, again, there's space for both to coexist because in audio, again, there is this need for sort of, content and stories. And, if you already have a catalog that is readily available to be adapted, I think there is space for a wonderful collaboration to happen for sure, which is why I say I think we need to learn to coexist. We just need to figure out how to do it.
So you've collaborated with Bound Uptime, and judged for their publishing course. So what's something, about Indian literary ecosystem that you think the rest of the world still underestimates?
Yeah, I mean, with Bound, yes, they have a wonderful publishing program, which I was very fortunate to kind of judge the capstone project. I think something I think the wow, this is tricky. But I think probably the fact that we're rich in stories ourselves, we don't
Yes.
really need to borrow as much from the West or from other countries. And I think we're especially rich in stories in regional languages, which we've still not fully tapped into. I think that's another space we really need to look at. I mean, translations, I think, is again something that I see growing a lot. So I don't know. I'd love to see a phenomena where right now I know Japanese fiction is having a moment, right? With their different sort of stories and anthologies. I'd love to see a time where Indian stories are getting that kind of recognition for sure. So I think that's definitely something.
So you also, you said that success stories are great, but the stories of work in progress are equally, if not more important. So why do you think we don't hear enough about those work in progress?
Yeah, I think the simple answer, and I think the answer that comes to me automatically is probably because I don't know, maybe they're not glamorous enough, probably as compared to success stories. But also, I feel like I think people in general are very aspirational, especially if I think even if we look at India today, right? A lot of Indians are very aspirational. And I think there's something lovely to hear about someone who's, gone through a journey or struggle and has made it. And it's like, wow, okay, this person's done it. Can I also aspire to reach that? But now the issue is those stories get amplified so much that then we forget to support people who are actually trying to do something different and who are very much in that work in progress stage. Because the truth is, more of us are on this side as opposed to the other side of being successful. We're all works in progress. So then, where are the stories where you get to relate and say that, oh my God, this person's also having a similar experience? I know I'm not alone. I can still go on this. And I think that was kind of an attempt. And also, I think to challenge the notion of what a creative person looks like, because we all have these notions that, oh, if you're creative, you have to have an English literature degree, or you have to have be this way. And but no, you could be someone with a 9 to 5 job who's doing something as a hobby and still be very creative. So I think it was really also to challenge that.
So your podcast, The Closet Writer Chronicles, started with emerging voices and now features well-known names too. Is it harder to get vulnerability from someone who's established, or do you think vulnerability is, a beautiful accessory for all writers?
I think I think vulnerability is something that's easy to get if you're willing to be vulnerable yourself in a conversation. I think something at least I try to do is when a guest is sharing something and I resonate and there's something I could potentially share, I share it because that sometimes leads to comfort in terms for them also
Yeah,
that,
yeah,
oh,
to open up.
okay, yeah, exactly. So that really helps build a rapport and a conversation and an equation. And I've always wanted the vibe to be like as if you're meeting like a friend or someone like casually for coffee or like at a restaurant or something like that and just having a very candid conversation. So that's kind of the vibe I've always gone for. I think it's challenging if, say, even if it is an established, it doesn't have to be an established person. If it's someone who's very, I think, stuck on how they should appear,
Hmm.
I think then it's a
Then it's a
challenge
problem. Yeah,
to break through
agree.
that sometimes. But I think more often than not, I think people like to talk and like to be heard. I think if,
Absolutely.
yeah, so I think if you give them that space, I think they will open up. So yeah, that's how I look at it.
So you worked also behind the scenes for other podcasts, like Books and Beyond with Bound, So what's something most listeners don't realize about audio storytelling? Tell us that.
The amount of work that goes behind it. I
Yeah.
mean, Mawa, even for you for this podcast, the amount of coordination and setting up the logistical sort of things that go in, it's a lot because just ideating, conceptualizing, scripting. If you have guests, then okay, what kind of guests, curating that list, figuring out a conversation. Okay, after that, recording, post recording, how do I edit, distribute? So it's a lot of work. I think people sometimes don't realize. And
No,
then
they don't.
everyone's like, yeah, and then everyone's like, I want a new episode this week. I'm like, guys, calm down. There's a lot of work that needs to go into one
I
episode.
love that, Sangeeta. Guys, calm down because that's exactly what I want to tell. A lot of people who keep coming and saying, "When is my episode coming out?" I mean, there is so much work that needs to
Yeah.
go in before you really upload one
Yeah.
episode. Thank you. I mean, I'm sending you a high five from here.
I feel you, I see you.
So let's talk about body talk. It deals with mental health, the body, and vulnerability. What drew you to it, and how does that space differ from your other work? This is a very interesting space, I think, that really needs to be more heard and spoken.
Yeah, so Body Talk is this lovely platform and, of course, magazine that advocates for mental health. It's been founded by Sudiksha Somani, who's a very talented graphic designer, also very passionate mental health advocate. So I ended up connecting with her during, again, the pandemic through like a virtual artists meet. And I really loved what she was doing. And she created this again during the pandemic, this magazine. She managed to get contributors from across 15 countries and put this together, and was so aesthetically done but also very meaningful stories and
Mhm.
opinion pieces that she shared. And I ended up interviewing her for my podcast on season 1. And we really just related on a lot of things, and she kind of asked, hey, would you be interested in maybe joining as an associate editor for an issue. So that's where it really started. I'm passionate about mental health myself. It's something I very strongly feel about. So I thought it was wonderful. And I think, again, the kind of stories and conversations we're trying to push through the zine is something that, like you rightly said, I think is the need of the hour. I think we need more exposure to mental health in general. So yeah.
Oh, yeah, yeah, absolutely. I mean, for the first time, I think there's language around it. During my times, there was no language around it. Uh, so, yeah, fantastic, amazing. You've also been deeply involved in reading and selecting fiction for Carve magazine. So, as a reader first, what makes you fall in love with a manuscript? Tell us that.
Oh, this is a tough one. But I think with Carve, I joined again about 4 years ago now. And again, the idea of doing it was really to understand how selections for short stories work for, say, a publication. And understand, what are writers submitting and whatnot, and how exactly the selections are made, what are, the criteria. But of course, I think, like you rightly said, you kind of discover what you like in that process of, doing it. I think for me, in any story, there are certain themes I definitely gravitate towards as a reader, but I think editorially also when I'm looking, I think things that really captivate me are, I think one is character, the voice, and of course world building, and also the plot progression. But I feel like plot progression sometimes doesn't matter as much if you can get your reader to really feel for your character.
Yeah, to be
Like,
invested in your characters.
yeah. So I think that is something, like if there's a very strong character voice, like if I really like them or I don't like them at all, or
Yeah,
I'm
yeah.
feelings for them, I think you've already won in that department.
Yes, 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 absolutely. What's a publishing trend that you're absolutely bloody tired of right now?
Romanticy. I'm not even going to sugarcoat it.
Me too. Like I said, we have too many common areas, that we can kind of meet at. Now,
Yeah.
finally, for all the aspiring writers and editors out there who feel like they're not doing enough, and I feel that very often, what would you say to them?
I mean, take baby steps, honestly. I mean, only you know what your life is like and what you're
Yeah.
going through. So, I mean, even if you think you're not doing that much, even if you've taken half a step or one step, that's still progress, because finally it's a accumulation of all the steps you've taken. Even the fact that I'm sitting and talking to you today, right, is because back in 2017, I decided to randomly start a blog.
Me too, because back in 2018, I randomly began to start a blog called Moody Mo.
So you can already see live examples
Oh
here.
my God, yes, true.
So yeah, baby steps, progress over perfection for sure.
Yes. Thank you so much, Sangeetha, for taking out the time and being in today's podcast with us. And we wish you all the best and may you flourish, thrive, and write and do podcasts and write poetry every day.
Oh, thank you so much. Wish you all the love, light, and luck as well.
Thank you.